Hello and welcome to a Lightwave tutorial on IK Booster. Today we are learning how to use the copy keyframe current. And to demonstrate that, let me load an object for us to experiment with. So that's the object, and let me go to the setup tab, add convert skeletons so that we have some bones to work with. Now if I hit Ctrl B, and I can activate IK Booster mode. If you want to do it manually, you can go to Modify tab, Tools, and tick the IK Boost 2. So once I do that, I can right click on the center of gravity of this item and apply IK Booster. Alright, so if I go down here on the, I can review the dope track. So I click that. I review the dope track. Now I can change my mode to it's showing me a different menu. That's not the menu I want, so I can let me start with this side. That's the wrong menu. So if that happens, if you're seeing the wrong menu here, just click a few times on an empty area. It's a bug in IK Boost. So if I click here and go to options, I can reduce the controller size to my favorite 0. That way I don't see any controllers on the object. And then here I can change the mode to all item. I recommend all item for all beginners in IK Booster. Alright, so now we are ready to begin animating, and let's add some limits first. So I'll click this bone, right click and say IK stop. Do the same on the other side, on the other shoulder bone, and the other one down here on the feet as well, IK stop. On the neck as well, IK stop. And on the ankles, I will use fix and fix, and on the foot as well, fix and fix on the other foot. Right, so let me move to frame 5 and test out my rig. So the rig is pretty good. So far, so good. Everything seems to be working fine. Alright, so if I go back to frame 0, I can add a default pose for this character. Let me just lower the arms like so. And there we have a default pose somewhat of the character. Okay, so in the dope track here, if I select, or I just right click here anywhere, there's this function called copy key from current. It's very useful. So let's try that out. Let me go to frame 5 and let me give this character a pose of some kind. So let me pose him that way. By the way, when moving your arms, if you can't really position the elbow as you want, one trick you can do is you can right click on the wrist bone here and fix it. That way you are free to move your elbow as you please, to position the character as you want. Then you can remove the fix to animate further. And let me do the same here. Bend it like that, fix, and let me move it out somewhat. Okay, something like that. So now we have that animation, world-class, award-winning animation right there. Okay, so I have that animation, and if I wanted to stay on, for example, up to frame 20, okay, I could hit enter because I'm in all mode here, I'm in all items. If I hit enter, I can create a motion key right there, okay, and so this keyframe stays on up to there, and then I want him to go back to the normal pose on frame 30. So instead of me trying to recreate that pose, the original pose, I could easily go to frame 0, put the cursor on frame 0, and then right click on frame 30 and say copy key from current and hit that, and right just like that I'm back to the original pose. So that's how you copy poses from different sections of the timeline using this key. So you put the timeline indicator on the key that you want to copy, and then right click where you want to copy and paste it, where you want to paste it, and just say copy key from current. Now there are times when there are keys that are selected, like for example these keys are selected for some reason. Maybe you are from a previous operation that needed selecting keys. What will happen is when you right click, you see a very different menu, which Lightwave thinks you want to do something with the selected keys, even though they might be empty sometimes. So what you do in this case, just click on the dope track a few times to make sure that all the keys in the timeline are deselected. Then you can right click and find copy key from current. And sometimes if you don't click in the dope track and there's a key, maybe a single key that's selected, like here, and then over there, let's say here, and right click and say copy key from current, I'll not have any key. I won't see any key that has been copied here, because what has happened is it's copying right here on the same selected keyframe. So it's a good idea before you do these operations to click a few times in the dope track to make sure that all selections are deselected before you copy the keyframe. So from frame 30, for example, I want to stay on up to frame 50. I can still do the same thing, go to frame 30 and copy key from current like that, and this pause stays on. But let's say I want at frame 60, I want a different pose that's more or less similar to the one in frame 5. So I can copy this to frame 60 like that. And then I can simply click and drag a few bones, and just like that, in a few seconds, it looks like a different pose from frame 5, frame 60, even though I copied it from the same location. So frame 5 and frame 60. So this makes animation very quick, because you don't really need to pause your character from scratch and so on. You can simply copy keys from different locations of the timeline and speed up your animation. You know, you can go through a lot of keyframes in a relatively short period of time. And the reason why some of these keyframes are not holding very well like this, if this is happening, you might need to use the linear mode for keyframes. What I do is I go to the graph editor, and in options, for example, graph editor options, I make sure that all default curves are linear. But if you don't want to do that, you don't want to go to the graph editor, all you need to do is go, let's say from frame 30, I want you to hold this keyframe without doing this up to frame 50. All I have to do is put a keyframe next to 30 at 31, the same exact keyframe. So all I can do is just put the cursor at 30 and then right click on 31. Let me click a bunch of times here. Right click on 31, copy key from current, right click on 49, copy key from current. So that makes sure that the keyframe holds throughout like that. All right, so that's how you copy keys from your current timeline to speed up your animation process and make great animations. All right, so I'll see you in another tutorial on IK Booster.